Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John. This report is for the 16th. Well, the 15th. Whew, not a whole lot happened there. But we are edging closer to what I was talking about. We were looking for the 30, 22-ish range, somewhere in there as a typical point where you kind of like soften out and then we really get an idea. We've got clean cyan under red, beautiful. Steel is below red, rising green. I mean, what more do you want from a trend run? I mean, it's all the things we look for in a DOC, shakeout continuing to rising histogram. And yet, you go into zero hedge and you would think that the sky is falling and the earth has ended and nobody has a job. But this is the thing about the gloom and doom. Markets melt up in that fear factor. And even though there are liquidations, you still have corporations buying a significant number of their shares for buybacks because of what it does for their valuation, stock price, obviously. So you have this underpinning of buyers that exists in the market, and a lot of people want to ignore that just because retail guys, and then if retail guys are gone and this continues, your institutional guys, they have to continue to buy because they have to match the performance of the S&P. And that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy until everyone gets scared at some point. But it just continues to reverberate itself. The battles in the euro, they're not going to end anytime soon. We're at this inflection point right here between this bullish run and whether or not we're going to flip back to a bearish. If we can get the steel dip below silent and a pop up, then we might see the lows taken out a little bit back here and revisit well, somewhere a little bit lower. I don't know that the U.S. is going to accept that. This is really going to be an interesting one because the lines are sort of becoming clearer and clearer, even with China, and that the U.S. is going to defend itself and try to go up against the Fed. Now, if they get the Fed to cooperate is the interesting question. And with the appointment of new Fed governors and that, it would change things dramatically because if the Fed worked in cooperation with trade policy on that, the rest of the world would be in a really difficult bind. They just couldn't compete against it. TLT seeing a little bit of a pop-up, the potential, again, of this idea that rates are going to go back to zero because that makes all the sense in the world. And well, hey, if they did actually cut rates, it would certainly help the deficit dramatically. Something we talked about. I mean, the deficit that ran for the last couple of years would have been cut in half had they not raised rates as they did, which is even more frightening because can you imagine normalized rates and what that would do? It would just instantly bankrupt the country. Something to think about because rising rates have a bigger impact there than anywhere else, and that draws money out of the economy, and the effects of that are pretty clear. Oil, we're not expecting oil to break out anywhere. I mean, this is sort of kind of, I thought, the top side of this range for now. Again, because you're just going to get lags unless there's some major incident that really impacts things. But the whole Strait of Hormuz thing kind of died out pretty fast and didn't produce a whole lot of anything. Now, that doesn't mean that gold, current cryptocurrencies and that aren't still going to have a marketable move higher because I think there's still this large population that is looking for a safe haven. They just don't know when the hammer is going to come down. They just all think it's tomorrow. And so they want to be prepared today. So bidding up some of the protection assets. It was just a boring Monday. I mean, with the pre-market move, it would mean a clean DOC spreads, fine, and then it came all the way through, didn't really reset. And we actually kind of wandered lower until we finally reset. It was, well, right over here. We had continued to get higher pivots on the P2s in that. So when this one signaled down here on the green, on the dip down by the 23%, that's legitimate from that move. It's just, that with the steel not having reset, you're likely to just go bouncing back and forth. So what you're looking for at that point is every time that it crosses above steel. So, if you want to look for even better entries or add-in situations on that, not that there's a whole lot of difference between the close here at 14.25 and where this crosses right back here at 13.50. You get 3 whopping ticks. So, but you just know that you're less likely to face downside when you've got this crossover coming back to the upside, and it corresponded with the bar later of green crossing red, and and the orange then a dip below red. And that led to, well, what we have right now, which is just a modest. So from a coloration standpoint, this is spot on. I think the color coding for the Diehl company too is nailing the vast majority of it correctly. And we can certainly fine tune when we know. I've been practicing with this. It's a difficult one to clarify what the actual legitimate terms are from a programming standpoint of this reset of steel and when it doesn't occur, and the effects of these minor crossovers within situations where there are already cells. So you can get a bullish crossover, but if it isn't corresponding with a bullish move of green, is it going to be more sustainable or less? And in this particular case, like the falling red, had a more predominant drawdown, even though you had the bullish pop-up of the steel at that particular point, and then finally when it did occur, was able to turn everything around. And it still took forever. I mean, we still had dips that came all the way back down, so it wasn't by any means dramatic. It's just, it's worth knowing and being able to understand that and see how that power of that steel reset from a trend standpoint, it makes a difference. So enough on that one. As always, though, if something unique happens, I will certainly put it up, but maybe a little bit of slowness for the summer right here. It's got to start ticking up here as we get into the last couple weeks of the month. It's going to start to percolate, so looking forward to it. As always, though, trade well. We'll talk to you later.